Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bound to Talk Football. It's a special Monday episode. It is Monday, October 7th, 2024. Happy Monday to you all. Blake Walker, Paul Ayers with you here this afternoon, this evening, whenever you're watching. The RPI is out. Class 5A, Class 4A, Class 3A. Rankings came out in Class 2A, and all you need to know about those rankings is Montezuma beating Belle Plaine knocked Belle Plaine out. So GTRA is now into the rankings, an 8-player. And Des Moines Christian lost to Kemper, so they just moved Des Moines Christian back 2 spots. Other than that, nothing has changed in those rankings. So there you go. Don't say we didn't say anything about it. Paul, the RPI is out. 5A, 4A, 3A. This has been a thing for the last 2 years. The last 2 years, we have used RPI. Now we're on our 3rd straight year of using the RPI. Personally, I don't really see it changing. I don't think it needs to change right now. Obviously, we have a lot of thoughts on the RPI, but we have to remember a couple things. The RPI has no human element. There are no human voters, no nothing. Mm-hmm. It's basically a calculation. It's winning percentage times whatever your winnings, or it's 0.375 times winning percentage, 0.375 times opponent's winning percentage, and then it's 0.25 times opponent's winning percentage. And that's how you get your RPI. So, yeah, that's kind of how it works. Today, Paul and I are going to be going through the rankings. We're going to react to them, overreact to them like everybody else is. And, yeah. Also, another quick thing, the RPI will work itself out. It always does. Paul and I, the first time we saw it in 2022, I bet you and I probably lost our minds because we were like, this makes no sense. But
yep,
it's just kind of one of those things. So, Paul, let's start out with 5A. We do not have any graphic pull up. I wonder, let me check here. I might be able to actually share my screen. Might lag it out a little bit, but we'll see what we can do.
This could be huge.
I can. Paul, can you see the screen on my thing? Give me a second. Sweet. That worked way better than I thought it could. Now, can I adjust this any? No, that's okay. All right, so as you can see, this is Class 5A. Bettendorf is the number 1 team. I think that's good. That's exactly what it should be. As you can see, team records here, opponent records are here, and opponents' records are here. These are really 2 things that you want to look out for, and then these little numbers here can get really interesting, especially when we get toward the back half. Bettendorf's number 1, Paul, no surprise. Iowa City Liberty at number 2, their only losses to Pleasant Valley. And really what we're going to be doing is talking about how this helps them out. Liberty being number 2 right now, Paul, in my mind, means that they have a lot of cushion the rest of the regular season.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I was a little bit surprised. I guess I overlooked their kind of opponent schedule they have going on. They played Iowa City West, Iowa City High to start off the year. Lost to Pleasant Valley, but then rattled off 3 straight wins against Cedar Falls, Prairie, and Cedar Rapids, Washington. They do have kind of a big end of season. They got Ankeny, which will be a big game this upcoming week. And then they've got Waterloo West, who's good on the RPI. I think me and Blake would both agree that Iowa City Liberty is definitely favored to win that, but still RPI-wise a big one. And Cedar Rapids Jefferson, who's also not been awful this year, the record's there. So that's a team that could easily you're looking at them and saying they're almost clinched practically. I know we're just guessing their final scores at this point, but I think that Iowa City Liberty getting this number 2 seed to start off was big for the Bolts, and I think that they're kind of comfortably in. They control their own destiny for sure.
Waterloo West is at the number 3 spot. This is the one that I think a lot of people are just kind of they'll scratch their heads at. But you look at it, their only losses to Waukee Northwest. Waukee Northwest took care of them. That's another thing you have to think about. The RPI, it doesn't see these teams. It doesn't physically look at these teams. 5-1, no matter how you slice it, that is a top 8 record, top 7 record in the state. I mean, you can't not look past that. 30-24 opponents' records, and then their opponents' records are, let's see, 243 and 243, so not bad. I will say, Paul, the schedule, it's not easy the rest of the way. Obviously, they still play Iowa City Liberty, you said, and then they play Humboldt. Yeah, and then they play Valley this week, and then they play Ottumwa the last game of the year. Don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure they do. So, yes, Waterloo West is number 3, but as we saw with Gilbert, a perfect example last year, this stuff works itself out. And slowly but surely, if Waterloo West doesn't keep winning, I mean, they're just going to keep dropping. I mean, that's just kind of how it is. They might, I truly believe Ottumwa versus Waterloo West, Paul, might be for a spot in the playoffs at the end of the
day. I'd agree. I think that's basically a playoff game right there. You can circle it. Whoever wins that one and comes out and gets in. We'll double check Ottumwa's back half of the schedule here. They've got Waukee Northwest this week. We've talked about that game is big for them. We both probably would agree that Waukee Northwest is favored pretty heavily. And then they've got Des Moines East and Waterloo West. So there's a chance Ottumwa is just in if they beat Des Moines East.
Yeah.
Because they don't even pretty solid record to have. That'd be probably the best record we've seen not make it into the playoffs.
That's a good point.
So I think they're probably pretty safe if they beat Des Moines East. But that Waterloo West game for at least Waterloo West is huge.
Yes, that's going to be big. Valley being higher than Dowling is huge for the Tigers. I think Valley should be a top 3 seed. Wouldn't you think, Paul, here toward the postseason? Like, I think they'll settle themselves out pretty well here.
Yeah, and they've got this Waterloo West game coming up, and then they've got at Ankeny, which that's a game that's not easy by any means, but we all favor Valley. And then they've got Marshalltown the end of the year, so that's a team that they control their destiny to potentially be number 1, considering seeing how opponents record stuff figures itself out. I think Bettendorf, if they're undefeated, just too much to take that 1 seed from them, and that's huge for an Eastern Iowa team because there's probably a pretty good chance they're not going to get like a CIML team sent out. I feel like
we'll talk the bubble here in a second once we go further down. I will say, Paul, another thing that we got to also think about, that cut line right here underneath 8 and then to 9, that is your home field advantage for the postseason. So you also have to really think about that and who's who. Dowling at 7, we already talked about Ottumwa. It's going to be close, but Ottumwa, with that, making it 6 games and already having none losses, they almost can afford to lose at least 1. Or at least that's what Paul and I think. Obviously, that right there is the worst in 5A, 16-38 opponent record. That is the worst in 5A. Now I look at it. Is it? Yes, it is.
Yep.
Dowling at 7. I think the Maroons, really their big final test will be Southeast Polk. Who they play this week? I can't remember. Urbandale. So you never know. Urbandale's been pretty good on and off this year. We'll talk about Urbandale in a second. Linn-Mar 5-1 at the 8 spot. You never want to be the last team that's 5-1. Who does Linn-Mar have left, Paul? Because 23-31 opponent record. Obviously, this record most of the time is going to be decent for at least the top couple, but Linn-Mar could be fighting something depending on their schedule here the rest of the way.
Yep. So they got Davenport West coming up. That one is, we could probably say, a safe win for Linn-Mar. Then they've got Iowa City High, who's a team that showed that they can win games. It's not an easy game by any means. They get them at home, though. And then they're at Pleasant Valley, which is a monumental game out east because those 2 teams have been kind of separating themselves besides Bettendorf. Those have been the 2 teams that are right under Bettendorf. So that'll be a huge game RPI-wise. I think Linn-Mar's probably safe.
I was going to say,
but
I don't.
Something probably safe.
If you want home field advantage, win out. If not, you're going to go on the road. But it'd be a dangerous road team. The team right below them, Iowa City High, I know for a fact City High is not anywhere near safe. 4-2. They're the best 4-2 team on here. Remember, they do have a loss to Joliet Catholic, who down here, the RPI does still follow. They are 4-2 right now, 24-24 opponent loss record. So Iowa City High getting the benefit of the doubt. Don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure City High has a date with Bettendorf here in a couple of weeks. Do they not, Paul?
Pleasant Valley.
Pleasant Valley. That's who it is.
Wait. Wrong schedule. You might be right. Yeah, they have Bettendorf. Sorry. Okay. There we go. Okay. Bettendorf in week 9, and then they have Linn-Mar week 8. So 2 top 10 teams. They're going to figure each other out.
City High might be the borderline team, one of the borderline teams that we talk about, because you can't lose both of them. I just don't see a 5-4 City High team getting into the postseason.
Yeah,
especially for Eastern Iowa. Yeah, so that'll be interesting for City High. Johnston at the 4-2 position. The Dragons obviously have a win over Waukee, big win over Waukee, which unfortunately Waukee's down at 13th. We'll talk about Waukee for a second. Southeast Polk. Has Johnston beat a team above them yet? I don't think so. No, I have not.
Yeah, no.
But for Johnston's sake, Paul, they need Waukee Northwest, and Southeast Polk to win. That's really what they need. They need to win, and they need them to win.
Yep. I will note Ankeny as well. They beat, and I think Ankeny's on the path where they're going to get some wins at the end of the year as well. So they finish off with Council Bluffs Lincoln, who is at that 16 spot. We will have to kind of check their schedule when we talk about them. I don't know how survivable that is. And then they've got at Urbandale. That's a rivalry game, but I feel like Johnson safely is favored. And then Sioux City East, where they go out west and see if they can beat that team as well. That's also 11th. So right there in the bubble. So
I think Sioux City East, personally, we'd have to look at their schedule. I feel like that's another one of those teams that might be, I'll be curious to see what they have left, but it might be on the
Lincoln,
bubble.
Ames, and Johnston.
Okay. Well, in that case, yeah, it'll be close. I think it'll be close.
They get those 2 wins and lose at Johnston. I think they're safe. The game that they really might circle is brutal is Sergeant Bluffington. I know they're 6-0 and undefeated, which kind of helps them, but that's a game they feel like they probably had to win.
Yeah,
to be safely in at least.
Obviously, eye test is a whole different thing. Obviously, like we've talked about, the RPI doesn't factor in eye test, but they lost 48-3 in Southeast Polk. So just one of those things. All right, 3 CIML teams, Paul. Ankeny, Waukee, Ankeny Centennial. Ankeny Centennial's opponent record is 22-32. That is crazy to me. Waukee at 13. We both have seen Waukee. Obviously, they are looking for that big win. I mean, they have good wins. Waukee Northwest is a good win, but they're below them. I think Ankeny's schedule helps them. Now, do you think, Paul, Ankeny can afford to lose to – can Ankeny lose to Valley and Liberty and still get in, do you think?
I think with Liberty, you might be stretching it because we're looking – if they lost both those games, we're looking at a 5-loss team.
Valley made it. 5 losses.
Yeah, 5-loss team. I know they made it. It's tough. I can't guarantee, I guess. Because we've seen, I don't think I said Valley was going to make it last year, and they did make it. So I'd say they definitely are at 17 or 16. I think we can both agree on that. And
yeah, I agree.
That's when it gets worrisome for Eastern Iowa team. Because right now, if we just want to look right now, Ankeny's played 2 Eastern Iowa teams that I'd say are like middle of the pack and throttled them. So
yeah.
That's a little bit worse than we'll see Iowa City Liberty. If they beat Liberty, you're looking at playoffs.
I think they're going to be okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm Bettendorf, I don't like these 3 CIML teams sitting around the bubble. And then Southeast Polk at 17th. I just don't think Bettendorf wants to see one of those guys. Now, maybe they do, but personally, I just don't see that happening. Waukee's scheduled the rest of the way, Paul. Is it must win for the Warriors here? I mean, they are, they have Southeast Polk this week. I know they have Lincoln, Council Bluffs Lincoln, but I think Waukee can afford to lose one more, and I think they'll be okay.
Yep, I think they can lose to Southeast Polk. They beat Roosevelt and beat Lincoln. I think they're okay. They're definitely on that fringe, though, probably a 14 through 16 type seed. Yep. Team you really wouldn't want to see, but I get kind of their schedule hasn't been ridiculous in CIML standards. They've played Valley, yes, and then they played Johnston. But other than that, it hasn't been too crazy. So a little bit worried with that opponent's record, especially if Southeast Polk doesn't kind of get going because they're kind of relying on that. And they need Johnston to get going, like continue this tear they're on. Yeah. But I think with Waukee, you're looking at a playoff team. It's just not you don't want to ideally be 14 through 16 because only one of those teams is going to get sent out east, and the other two are going to play a Valley or a Dowling or whoever else ends up in that top CIML spot.
Right. Ankeny Centennials at 14. If I remember correctly, I think they're really the last big game for them is Waukee Northwest. We'll talk about Northwest in a second, but I think Centennial's going to be just fine, especially with what the on-field product we saw on Friday night. I think Centennial should be okay.
Yeah, I really want to see them win out and go 3 wins for them at least, just to be not playing a CIML team that's heavily favored over them. But I don't want to say that any CIML team is just going to be able to walk through Centennial. I think this is a team that's right up there and can compete with the top teams. Obviously, we saw that with Dowling. That was a crazy game, by the way. I don't know if we're recapping that technically.
I think we were just going to kind of like generally talk about it. We can talk about it right now while we have it. Dowling defeats Ankeny Centennial 41-35 in overtime, triple overtime. I was not able to watch. I was out doing stuff. But what was the quarterback thing? Do we have a new quarterback at Dowling?
I feel like what's been going on is I've noticed when they need to throw the ball, like that's their only option. They go with Joey Nahas. He must have a better arm. He looked good. He went 7 for 11, 63% completion percentage, and 3 touchdowns and 106 yards or 126 yards, no interceptions. Big for them down the stretch. The big kind of thing for me is I feel like that's not a system you should maybe lean on. We saw them go with 2 quarterbacks a while ago with Smolik and I believe it was Sternberg. It was someone like that. They had 2 quarterbacks back when they lost to Ankeny in the semis, like 2020. And it worked for them for a while, but I just don't know if that's the way you want to do it. And Joey Nahas looks good. I think he kind of deserves that starting spot. I know Parker's looked good as well. He's a mobile quarterback that also has a good arm. So it'll be interesting. But as for Centennial, I think you saw some good things with Chase Glover. He played a good game, and you saw Braden Jackson had 3 touchdowns as well, or maybe even 4. So this is for Centennial. It's a brutal loss. I think you kind of point that back half, the secondary, they need to stay true there. Yep, they need to stay true at the end of that game, and they didn't. And they allowed big plays. When you're down 21-3, second half, and at one point 21-10 late in the fourth, you got to be safe in that secondary spot. And they gave up the big plays, and it led to that huge comeback win. Because we were looking, Centennial wins that. We're looking at
I think them and Dowling would be swapped.
Yep.
So I don't know. It's going to be interesting down the stretch. I kind of want to group the rest of the half back here. Hempstead 4-2, Lincoln 4-2. Schedule doesn't get any easier, I believe, for both those teams. Southeast Polk, Paul. This is a big team. Do you think they can afford 4 and 5 to get in, or are their wins just not going to be enough? Because the Prairie loss is not looking great. Prairie's 2 and 4. I think you got to be over 500 if Southeast Polk wants to get in.
Yeah, it's scary. Here's what I think. I think there's a chance we're looking at last year's Valley with this team.
Yes.
Team that could go 3-6 and be in that 16 spot. They have Waukee coming up, which is basically a playoff game, or if you're coaching for Southeast Polk or Waukee, you're saying this is a playoff game. We need it. But then they also have at Dowling week 8, which is brutal. That's a very tough one to just have at the back end of your schedule. So they have to win that one, or not have to, but that's a game that's definitely circled for them as well. Then they finish off with Des Moines Lincoln. So really, I think I'd feel better if you win both Ankeny or Waukee and Dowling, you're in. If you split, you're going to be sitting there hoping for some other people to win and lose. Really. Yeah, I'd agree. I'd say a split, beating at least Waukee, I think keeps them safe for the meantime. You're not like just in. I'd agree that you're just kind of watching other teams play and praying they lose. But Dowling should, after Southeast Polk, they should beat Urbandale and Sioux City North. So you're looking at a good opponent record there.
Yeah.
And for Waukee, that I think they just got to beat Waukee. Those are two teams that have similar schedules where they have big circles. So, yeah, Southeast Polk, you're scared. You're a little nervous now, but
I just don't know if they could get in at 4-5. I just don't. I don't think they would. Couple other teams below them. Paul, how about this? Everyone can see the teams obviously here on the standings. Who's the team below 16th that you think can get in?
I think I'd have to go with Southeast Polk.
Okay.
I don't. That's just a safe pick. I maybe can look at Iowa City West schedule real quick, and they got PV and Prairie. I think that I can't be too confident with that. I think Southeast Polk, just based off what we saw last year, Valley. I mean, they're playing a very similar schedule to Valley. The similar schedule last year. Sorry, just mixing and matching schedules there, but
right.
I think they have the best shot. I Council Bluffs Lincoln. I was a little surprised at 4-2 that they would be at the 16 spot. I feel like usually teams out west have to have pretty
good
win-loss. So they've got Sioux City East or Johnson. Sorry, they just lost to Sioux City East and Waukee, and those are going to be two really tough games for Council Bluffs Lincoln. So, yeah, I'm going to go Southeast Polk.
I have a weird feeling that Waukee Northwest could go on a run. They're gonna have to be Centennial. What were you gonna say?
That's my second team in there. If you pick it,
they have to beat Centennial, I think, but could get in at 4-5. I'm not sure, but I feel like Northwest could be the team that makes a run.
Yep, you're looking at a team whose losses are to Johnston, who's really good, Waukee, Dowling, and Valley. So those are all four in the playoffs right now.
Could have wins at the end of the day. Could have wins over Ottumwa, Waterloo West. While I know on paper, well, on the eye test, those aren't amazing, but on paper they're realistically very good. I think they could get in at 4-5.
Yep. If they win 3 straight, I think they're safely in if they win 3 straight.
Yes,
because Centennial won't drop off.
Yes, I agree. So I don't know, man. It's going to be fun. There's the rest of the standings, just if anybody wanted to see it. That's 5A. We'll buckle down to 4A here. Let me switch things over. So here's the thing with – oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to mention, and I feel like maybe this is a controversial topic, but should we factor in on RPI how bad your losses are?
Like
if you're getting beat by – I feel like you can't hold a loss to – a team 49-0, the same as a loss like Dowling versus Centennial. I feel like there's a problem there because when you go pure win-loss, I just don't think every win's the same and every loss is the same.
I agree 100%. Like just factor in point differential. Doesn't our bound power index show point differential?
Yep.
Like average point differential. So like that kind of shows its hand a little bit. If you go to our bound power index for anyone listening or watching, and you go to power index and you scroll all the way over to the right, it shows point differential, average point differential. Usually the teams that are way up in the green, like I think it literally shows you green and red.
Yep.
Those are very important to think about. But yeah, I do. I truly do. Because I think back, everybody's going to circle, well, Northwest beat Waterloo West by like 25, 30. Like, you know, it's just kind of one of those things that are going to be like, well, wait a minute. Yeah, I agree. All right. That would be a good post. Yep, that would be a good post. Should they factor in RPI? I don't know. So here's how we're going to do 4A, because yes, we have the rankings in front of us, but how this works is the top 2 teams in the district get automatic bids. And then it's 4 wild cards. So you fill out 12 teams that are automatic bids, and then you get wild cards. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to go through the districts, and then we're going to I'm going to point out where they are at, I guess. So this is Class 4A. We'll start out with 4A District 1. The number 1 team right now is Fort Dodge. Fort Dodge is at the 11th spot. They are an automatic bid. Again, this is –
Insert.
What?
Sergeant Buffington, right? Oh wait, 3A. Sorry, I was on the wrong one.
I'm on 4A.
Yeah, I know. My bad. all me.
4A, Fort Dodge is currently in. Spencer is the number 2 team in that district. They are in. And then the rest of your district will look like this. Lamar's is at 20th. Storm Lake is 21st. Denison Sleswig is at 33rd. And Sioux City West is at 34th. Lamar's could make a push. They are currently 3-3, but they're going to have to really win themselves out. Paul, personally, I think this district is pretty much a lock, if you ask me.
Yeah, I'd
don't
agree
think
with
we'll
you.
see a wild card out of here.
Yep, I'd agree. I think the top 2 teams make it, but no one else. Everyone else is looking out.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough one to fight.
Mm-hmm.
4A District 2, Decorah is the number 1 team. They are locked in as of right now. Western Dubuque, pretty much, I think, locked them. Well, no, I'm not going to say that because Western Dubuque did win, but Waverly Shell Rock beat Western Dubuque. But right now, Western Dubuque is in because they're higher in the RPI. Waverly Shell Rock is currently 17th. And I will get you the bids here in a second, the wild cards, if you will. But I just wanted to run through it. So Waverly Shell Rock is 17th. Mason City is 4th. They are currently 21st at 2-4. Waterloo West is 22nd, and Marion is 23rd. Overall, Paul, this is the best district in 4A.
Yep, I agree.
Just overall teams. I might as well just say it now. Waverly Shell Rock is one of the bids of the wild cards. They do have the win over Western Dubuque that really helps them. Realistically, I think Waverly Shell Rock should win out. I think the Go Hawks are going to be just fine, personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd agree that they're a team that is going to get hot at the end of the year. We saw it last year, and I think the opponents they play, I think we can safely say that the Go Hawks are going to get in. That win against Western Dubuque is going to be the big one they circle,
Huge.
And Clear Lake. Throw in
Absolutely.
Clear Lake too. That's
huge. Yeah, that's another thing. You throw in the non-districts, but district counts as well, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
4A District 3, Xavier is the number 1 team. They are currently locked. CCA is number 2. Check for me, Paul, if Clear Creek Amana and North Scott have played each other.
They play this week.
Okay, they play this week. So I did my math wrong. Fun fact. Waverly Shell Rock is not locked in right now. North Scott is locked in. That's my bad. I miscounted, if you will, but I will talk about what I was meaning. But North Scott is locked in not locked in, but they are a wild card. Clinton is 25th down here at 2-4. Burlington is 27th, and Oskaloosa is 29th. So really, Paul, North Scott has a chance to, in my opinion, probably lock themselves in if they beat CCA this week.
Mm-hmm. I'd agree. That would be a massive win. Obviously, Clear Creek and Mountain the same thing. Though you can probably safely say it's a playoff game right now.
They have a brutal back half of the schedule because I think they play Xavier next week.
Mm-hmm.
I think. So CCA, while being 10th, might be one of those borderline teams, especially as we get toward the end.
They're hunting for a wild card, most likely.
Yeah. So as of right now, the only wild card that I've named off is North Scott. 4A District 4. This is a fun one. Pella is at number 3. I think the Dutch are going to be just fine. Gilbert is at number 6. They are the second locked-in team. Paul, I'm going to ask you. At this time last year, Gilbert was 6-0 and was the number 1 team, and they didn't make it. Gilbert is 6-0. They are the number 6 team. Is it possible? Can you read off to me the rest of Gilbert's schedule? Who does Gilbert play the rest of the way?
So they've got a huge end of schedule. This is what we were talking about with 5A, how it fixed itself over time because a lot of people agreed that Gilbert probably wasn't the number 1 team in the state in 4A that year. They've got Bondurant Farrar, who's their big one. If you win that one, I think you're safe. I know the opponent's record isn't great, but a 7-2 team not making it would be pretty ridiculous. Newton, yeah, I don't think that it has ever happened. We can get checked, and then Newton at home as well. So both those games at home. That's a good team. That's in Newton. They're 16th right now, but I think if they win that one, then we're looking at a top 4 seed in the RPI, really high seed, and that'd be huge. And then they've got Pella, which is a massive game. Those are 2 huge.
So
major teams. So
really what it's going to come down to, if Gilbert loses 2 out of the 3, they could be okay. Should be okay. If you lose all 3, you're not in, because last year you lost all 3 and you were the 1 seed at this point. So I don't think they get in. And then really what it is, if you lose 1 of the 3, you get home field advantage, I believe. And then if you lose 2 of the 3, you might not be getting home field advantage. So Gilbert realistically should feel way better about this than last year in a way, because Bondurant is not as good. But Bondurant's still a good team. I truly believe, they might be one of the best 1-win teams in the state. Truly. But yeah, it's a weird time for Gilbert, but they are currently locked in as of right now. And realistically, if you beat Newton and you beat Bondurant, you're clinched. Because you'll have beaten the rest. Newton is at 16th. Newton is a wild card team. Obviously would have loved to beat Pella, but they did beat Bondurant. They need to take care of Gilbert, but Newton will be one of those teams that's clinging at the end. And for Newton's sake, probably need to beat Gilbert, maybe. It'll be close.
Yeah, it'll be close. They could maybe get in at that wild card spot, maybe if they lose, but
yeah. Bondurant is at 26. They are the best 1-win team in the state, according to the RPI. Carlisle is at the 32nd spot down here. Carlisle is 0-6, and Des Moines Hoover is 0-6. So, quote unquote, top heavy, if you will, and then the bottom half kind of falls off.
Look at Bondurant for our opponent schedule. 36-18. That's ridiculous.
They're doing the Waverly Shell Rock route last year.
Yep.
That's really
they need to get, I think, 3. They need to get 3 wins. I don't know how.
Yeah, maybe. You never know. Bondurant, could make it.
But I mean, Gilbert, Pella, Carlisle.
I wouldn't say they're all quote unquote winnable, but I think they are.
What if a 2-win team made it? What would it take? 9 games that are all. Really
it'd take your whole schedule to maybe have lost maybe 8 games, 9 games.
Ridiculous. Because it factors in 66% your win loss.
Yeah, might not even be mathematically possible. But this district is stacked. So we've already got, as of right now, we have 2 wild card teams. We have North Scott and Newton. This district is stacked, and it is going to be fun to watch how it ends out. 4A District 5. North Polk is currently what?
We can say it's a district of death.
Yeah, this is currently the district of death. Yeah, last year we had the one in 3A. This one looks like it'll be a wild finish. North Polk is the number 1 team. They are locked as of right now. ADM is the number 4 team. They are locked right now. They are number 2 in that district. They have North Polk and ADM play at the end of the year. That will be for the district title. Indianola is the number 9 team. They are currently 3rd in the district. They are locked as a wild card. They are a wild card right now at the number 9 position. Ballard, correct me if I'm wrong, did Indianola beat Ballard or did Ballard beat Indianola?
I think Ballard beat Indianola.
Okay, Ballard beat Indianola.
Yeah,
Ballard is a wild card. So if you're keeping track at home, we have used up all of our wild cards. So as of right now, North Scott, Newton, Indianola, and Ballard are all wild cards. And then get this, Boone down here, they are 5th in the district, but they're 18th overall at 3-3. Boone might have to get to winning here at the end if they want to make a push. And then Des Moines North is all the way down here in 35th. So this is it's going to be a tough race. Do I see both Indianola and Ballard getting the wild cards the rest of the way? Maybe, because Waverly Shell Rock is sitting right there, though, at 17th, the first wild card team out. Take that as you will.
Yep. I'd say the big team you just want to look at the schedules here for Ballard and Indianola. And for Ballard, they've got ADM. That's a big game. I think that's not by any means a game that you say that's a blowout. I don't think we're on that level yet, just guaranteeing blowouts. And Ballard's defense is good enough. We'll have to see if that offense can keep up with ADM. And then they've got Des Moines North, which is definitely a winnable game for them, and then Boone. So that's probably 2 wins there if we're just guessing. And that's tough to leave them out. We'll check Indianola as well. Indianola's got North Polk, ADM, and Des Moines North. So that's 2 probably tougher games.
Yep.
Very tough. You kind of hate to see it. This is two teams that's just gonna come down to the very end, and one of them's gonna have to win a big one. And Ballard's probably got the best shot at winning the big one just because it's easier for them. But Indianola could do it well. They've barely lost to some really good teams. So,
and I do think with Waverly Shellrock sitting on the outside looking in, the only downside for these guys is Waverly Shellrock's already played the top 2 teams in their district. So, realistically saying they should be able to beat Mason City, they should be able to beat Waterloo East, and they should be able to beat Marion. So, yeah, it's. I don't think this district gets 2 out of here. I just don't think it happens. But if you win, it solves all your problems. So, this next district, realistically, based off the top 2 teams, is the least, or I guess not the best, not the worst, but they're definitely not the best. Lewis Central is the 1 seed. They are currently 5th. I think they're going to be a lock easily. Winterset is the 2 seed at the 14th spot. They beat Norwalk. Circle that game because Norwalk is 19th. They are one of the teams on the outside looking in. And then DCG is 4th. They are 28th. Glenwood is 30th. And Council Bluffs Thomas Jefferson is 31st. Norwalk's going to need some help because right now, if Winterset can just hang on and win out, the Huskies are going to be fine. And I think we've got our 2 teams right here. I think Lewis Central and Winterset can get in.
It's tough for Norwalk. They've got Council Bluffs Jefferson, who's a winnable game for them. Then they've got Lewis Central, who we know
that'd be big if they could do it.
A really good game potentially because ADM and Norwalk had a really good game, and Lewis Central
and ADM had a really good game.
They're going to play the whole they played. And
here we go.
Yep. And then they've got Glenwood to end the year. It's tough because you're right. The Waverly Shark has a really good chance to be 6-3, and
I think they're going to get it. Yeah.
Yep.
I think
that
Waverly
takes
Shark
the wild card spot. And then you've got one more wild card spot, correct?
Yeah, so our wild cards right now in 4A are North Scott, Newton, Indianola, and Ballard. So that would mean 4A District 1 doesn't get a wild card. As of right now, 4A District 2 doesn't get a wild card, and 4A District 6 doesn't get a wild card. But again, Paul and I both believe 4A District 5 will not have 2 wildcard teams. I don't know if you're going to see a 2 wildcard team district in this class as I'm looking at it. So that's just me. But all right, 4A is going to be fun. You got anything else on 4A?
No, I did not.
All right, that's a fun class. In a way, some people will hate the whole 2 teams locked in some way. Yeah, it's not great. It's not great when the second team is locked in and they're not even in the top 16, which we have one of those here in 3A. But I think the wild card race is fun. I think it makes it interesting. I would be very curious to see if a wild card team has won a playoff game in the last 2 years of the RPI. Going to have to go and check that out. But I truly don't know if it's happened. I don't know. We'll just have to see. All right, here we go. 3A. We'll do the same exact thing. With the districts and everything else. Here's your top 16 teams. Read it in wheat. We'll start out with 3A District 1. Sergeant Bluff Luton is the number 3 team. Why did I put them at number 1 on my sheet? They are number 3. They are in the green. They are locked in. Bishop Heelan is in the green. They got the big win over Carroll, so that's big. I think these 2 have separated themselves out. What do you think, Paul?
I completely agree. I think they both kind of locked it up.
Yeah.
As long as they beat who they're supposed to beat. Bishop Heelan's got Boyden Whole Rock Valley. Then they play each other week 8. But obviously both of them.
That'll just be for the district title.
It won't really kill them either way.
No.
I mean, that's a big game. You want to beat your district opponents. But as for making the playoffs, both those teams are fine. And then MOC Floyd Valley to end it off for Bishop Heelan. And that, I think we can safely say if they do what they're supposed to do, they're in. And then Sergeant Bluffington already, we can say right now is pretty safe. They've got some huge wins. They've got Carroll coming up, which Bishop Heelan beat, so that's a huge one.
Yep.
Then they've got Bishop Heelan, so they've got a tough back half, but I think they've been really good this year, so I think they're just ready for it.
Carroll is at the 15th spot. As of right now, they are a wild card team, so Carroll has to win. I mean, they got to keep winning, and they might be okay. You can see their opponent record 27-27. Their opponent's record is actually pretty good, but Carroll is a wild card right now at 15th. MOC Floyd Valley down here at 18th. Has MOC Floyd Valley and Carroll played yet? I think they have.
Yeah, they did, and Carroll won.
Okay, so that's big. Sioux Center down here at 27th at 1-5, and then Boyden Hull Rock Valley is at 28th. Remember when Boyden Hull Rock Valley went to the 3A title game a couple years ago? I do.
Nice
lost
pick six
to Harlan. Yeah, he has more. What was the stat I saw? He has more touchdowns this season than like some big name wide receivers.
Two tutties.
Shout out Van Ginkel. So Carroll is the wild card team out of there. Bishop Hill and Sergeant Bluff Luton are your locks as of right now. 3A District 2. This is our district of death from last year, if you remember. And as you can see, those two number 2s at the top, Algona is the number 1 team. They are locked. Humboldt is the number 2 team. They are locked. Clear Lake is the 3rd team. They are a wild card right now in the 14th position. Clear Lake still plays Humboldt, Paul, I believe.
Yeah, I believe they still do.
So,
yep, they do.
Humboldt could drop a little bit here if they lose to Algona and then lose to Clear Lake. So Humboldt also controls their destiny, but Clear Lake could end up switching this, and Clear Lake could be the lock, and Humboldt could be the wild card.
Mm-hmm.
The 19th team right now is Webster City, who is currently 4th in the district. They are 2-4. They are the best 2-4 teams statistically here in the RPI. Charles City is 3-3. They're at 22. They are 5th in the district, and then Hampton Dumont Cal is 23rd. Overall, this is one of the better districts. I think this is the best district overall, from 1 to the bottom.
When we talk about Webster City, I mean, we shouted out Bondurant. They have a 39-15 opponent's record, 72%.
So, the table's in front of them. Let's just say that Webster City, if they win out, they could get in. It's a low percentage.
When you have, I mean, this thing is going to be nuts by the end of the year. They've got Algona and Humboldt week 8 and week 9.
Yeah,
and Charles City, who's 3-3.
Yeah, you control
insane.
You control your own destiny if you're Webster City. So out of 3A District 2, Algona and Humboldt are locks as of today. Clear Lake is a wildcard team. 3A District 3, Wahlert Catholic is your leader. They are currently locked. West Delaware, got to go down here to 11th, a little bit of a jump. They are currently locked. Independence is your wild card at 13th. So we've used up 3 wild cards already. And then what's next? Center Point Urbana down here at 26th. 29th is Central DeWitt, and then 33rd is Maquoketa. So Independence already played Wahlert, but Independence is still yet to play West Delaware. So things could get interesting. Again, another one of those you could see a flip-flop here.
Mm-hmm. Very well. And they've got Maquoketa and Center Point Urbana week 7 and 9. So if it's the week 8 game, that's a huge game for them. Independence has been a good team all year. That Wahlert Catholic game is going to hurt them, but that's a game there right there. So big one, week 8 for both those squads.
So we've used up 3 of our wild cards already. West Delaware and Wahlert Catholic are currently in as of right now. 3A District 4, this is the least of the districts right now that has, in terms of where everybody's ranked. Your number 1 team is Mount Vernon down here at 10th. They are currently locked. Washington is at 12th. They are 5-1. They are currently locked. They have not played each other, I don't believe. So when they do play for each other, it'll be for the district title game. Keokuk is 3rd. They're down here in 21st at 3-3. Then you got to go down to Mount Pleasant, currently at 31st. Assumption, 32. And then Fort Madison rounds it out down here at the bottom at 36. So I think these 2 teams should be okay. I think Washington already played Keokuk, I believe.
I'll double check. The big thing here is they did.
Okay.
The big thing here is this: if you were to build an argument against 2 teams making it, this would be the district.
This would be it. Yeah.
It's just a poor district this year. I think maybe it's just a little bit because it's just how the district was made on accident. They didn't mean to, but
But you got to
This
think
would be
geographically. Yeah, geographically, it has to make sense.
Mhm.
If Washington loses to Mount Vernon, Washington's going to be borderline top 16. But because they're the top 2 team, I think these 2 guys are safe. I think Mount Vernon and
Yeah,
Washington will make it.
I'd agree.
But yes, Paul is 100% correct. If you're going to make an argument, you circle this district. Nothing against the district. It's just some years it's better because you got to think, Paul, usually Assumption's going to be pretty good. I mean, this has just kind of been a down year for Assumption. So, yeah. 3A District 5. This is a good one. And this currently holds our last wild card team. Solon, the number 1 team, is at number 7, coming off the upset against Benton last week where they lost. Williamsburg is at 8. These are your 2 locks. These 2 play each other this week, which will maybe determine the district title game because Williamsburg still has to play Benton. Grinnell is at number 9. Grinnell, as of right now, is your last wild card team, or first wild card team. Technically, they are the highest ranked wild card team. And then Benton is 4th in the district. Technically, they're tied with Grinnell. Actually, they might be ahead of Grinnell. But either way, because of how the district works and how the RPI works, Benton is not in the playoffs right now. They are 16th, obviously still top 16, but they are not in right now as a wild card. Now, I will say Benton controls their destiny because Benton plays Grinnell this week. And really, Paul, that might be for the playoff spot at the end of the day because Grinnell still has to play Williamsburg. Benton still has to play Williamsburg. So I'm just saying Grinnell and Benton as a playoff game this week.
Yep, I'd agree with that. It sucks. There's 4 really good teams. Benton obviously really good, and it
very
sucks.
deserving teams. Yeah.
Yep, and it sucks because Benton beat Solon, so you're really looking at like just a tough. I mean, you're gonna have to circle those 2 games they lost against Mount Vernon and Clear Creek Amana. If they won one of those, we'd be probably a lot more comfortable saying another wild card team makes it in this district. But that loss there is going to sting.
What helps Grinnell has a 24-30 win-loss record. But what's really going to help Grinnell, especially in this category, Grinnell beat Bondurant, who we looked at Bondurant's opponents' loss record, win-loss record. So, that's just kind of one of those things. Grinnell beat Washington, who's going to get into the playoffs. So, I don't know, man. You just kind of take it as you will. I will say, though, if the playoff wild card works out, whoever loses the Grinnell-Benton game, in my opinion, can still get in as the last wild card team. But it's going to be like fringe RPI points. I mean, it's going to come down.
You're praying for a win there.
Grinnell missed the playoffs last year by 0.1 in the RPI. Truly, because it was them and Fort Madison as the 2 wild card teams, and Fort Madison beat them by 0.1. So Grinnell wants to make it back. Fairfield is the 5th team in the district. They're down here at 34. South Tama is in 35th. They are 6th. So it's a very top-heavy district. So there we go. We've used up all of our wild cards, and we still have 1 district to go. 3A District 6. Nevada is the number 1 team at they are currently 5th. Nevada, Paul, we haven't really talked about them a lot this year. Our only loss is to PCM. And if you've seen PCM, you know how good PCM is. Do we need to be having some chats here about Nevada?
Yeah, it was kind of like under the radar because they lost to PCM and kind of just stopped looking at them for a couple of weeks. But they have rattled off 3 straight wins, and I wouldn't say it's great teams they've played, but that's still 3 straight wins. They've got Harlan, Creston, and Atlantic coming up, and those are huge ones. Yep. This district will work itself out because every team plays
each other.
The opponent they need to play to make it in. So,
and this is where another thing people won't like the RPI because the number 2 team in this district right now are these guys right here, Atlantic, who are 17th. And if you're thinking RPI, you're like, okay, top 16, blah, blah, blah. Atlantic is the lowest 2 seed in a district, the lowest team that is a lock. They are 5-2. They've obviously played more games because they had that week 0 game. So I don't know when their bye is going to come or if they're going to drop a game. I have no idea how that's going to work. But
they might have to drop a game because I don't see a bye on the schedule.
Because what makes me think is like, did they think Perry wasn't going to be able to play every game? I have no idea. I'm not really sure. They're probably going to have to drop a game like we talked about. But Atlantic is in. They are locked, but the district will work itself out because 3rd is Harlan and 4th is Creston down here. Creston has the head-to-head win over Harlan. What is Atlantic scheduled the rest of the way, Paul?
Atlantic has Perry this week, which is probably a game they win. Then they've got Harlan and Nevada.
Oh,
Two
boy.
really tough games.
I wouldn't say Atlantic's safe.
No, they're not safe at all. The big one is Harlan. They've got to beat Harlan. That's been a problem for them. Harlan's beat them probably a crazy win streak against them right now.
Yeah.
We can probably go check using our tool. But, Atlantic, you need that win over Creston, and that loss really hurts. Winterset would have helped too, but I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. You're on the road. Yeah, it's tough. Their opponent, their wins just aren't good enough right now. Knoxville, Greene County, Glenwood, Clark, and Council Bluffs Jefferson, that's just not going to do it for you opponent record-wise. They got to get another win, and it's kind of tough to circle an easy win for them besides Perry.
Now, I know this year has not been the year that Creston had last year, but Paul, I think we have somewhat good news for Creston fans. It's out in front of them. If Creston wants to make the playoff, it's right in front of them. Yep. All they got to do is win. Yes.
They got to beat Knoxville, obviously. That one they probably should win. Then they've got Nevada, who is 5-1 and really good, but for this Creston team is competing with
they're figuring things out.
They're figuring it out. They had a really tough start to the year. They were getting blown out quite bad, but then they beat that crazy comeback against Harlan.
That Harlan game might be the
Yep. Might swing them out. So they got Knoxville. They go at Nevada. It's gonna be Nevada, right?
Yep.
Did I say that right? It's always that one, dude. It's always that one that messes
that
up.
And then you like throw together Bluff Luton when you say Sergeant Bluff Luton.
Yeah, I do. I'm not well versed. I'm used to the easy 5A names.
Yeah. It's all in front of Creston. And then Perry is currently 30th with 2-4. So your wild card teams are your locked teams in 3A right now. Sergeant Bluff Luton, Bishop Heelan, Algona Humboldt, Wahlert Catholic, West Delaware, Mount Vernon, Washington, Solon Williamsburg, Nevada Atlantic. And then your wild card teams are Carroll, Clear Lake, Independence, and Grinnell. So take it as you will. It's gonna be a fight. We are only 1 week into the RPI. We still have a lot of football left to be played, but these are the first RPI rankings. If you're mad about them, okay. The title of this video should be "It's gonna work itself out." It always does. Most of the time, the most deserving teams end up making it to the postseason. So it's gonna be fun. We're gonna see how it goes down the stretch. I'm going to post that district thing here this afternoon. Might actually go out before this video. I don't know. I want to post this video right away. So, yeah, that's all I got. Paul, you got anything else? We will be back on Thursday for the week.
Or not recap.
For the preview. Yeah, we got a fun week of football ahead. So, especially Class 3A. 3A's got some amazing games this week. So, that'll do it for us. Paul, appreciate your time. We will see everyone on Thursday. And that has been your RPI talk for this week. We're going to try to do this a little bit here every week. So appreciate everyone for watching and listening. See you later.